Mother Night by Kurt Vonnegut. Mother Night tells the story of an American author, an American playwright, who speaks German fluently and who was approached by an American operative during World War II, and he's asked by this American operative if he will live in Germany and will make propaganda broadcasts for the Nazis. He's already an established author, and so he's asked, go to Germany, become a broadcaster denouncing the Jews and whoever else the Nazis want denounced. But secretly, you'll be a spy for us, for the US of A, because in your speeches, there will be certain tells. There will be certain tells in your speeches, the way that you inflect your voice, the way you clear your throat, certain things that will communicate to us, to the Allies, vital information that we can use against the Nazis in the war effort. So he asks Howard Campbell to become a spy for the US. And Howard Campbell thinks it over, and he says, okay, I'll do it. And Howard Campbell, during the war years, he becomes the best propagandist you can imagine. He becomes the darling of Goebbels. For all intents and purposes, he is a Nazi. The only people who know that he is not a Nazi, that he's really a spy for the United States, is the person who approached him, the CIA operative, and one or two other people. Barring those few people, those I think 3 people, for all intents and purposes, the rest of the world thinks that he is a notorious Nazi. And so this is a story of what happens to Howard Campbell during the war years, but more importantly, after the war years. When he goes to New York, he lives in Greenwich Village, just wants to live a quiet, anonymous life, not to stand out. But as we find out, his cover is blown after a while, and people begin to see that the notorious Nazi propagandist is now alive and well and living in New York. And it tells the story about the people he meets in New York, how he is extradited to Israel to stand trial for war crimes against humanity. This is the story. It was just a terrific novel. It's a very, very ambivalent novel in the sense that a lot of people could interpret Howard Campbell as being a hero, a U.S. hero, a patriot, while still other people could interpret Howard Campbell as being a reprehensible person for having become an apologist for Nazism. Even the CIA, the American military operative who asks him to become a spy, even he says, we had no idea that you would be so successful in your propaganda broadcasts. So there's some ambivalence, a great deal of ambivalence as to just what kind of a person is Howard Campbell. Is he a hero? Is he a villain? What? As I read this novel, actually, Howard Campbell, it's made very clear by the author, is a completely apolitical person. He's not interested in politics at the very outset, even before he said yes to becoming a spy for the U.S. The question also has to be asked, well, why did he become a spy in the first place? Because he doesn't seem to have had any great allegiance to America, and he certainly didn't have any allegiance to Germany or to any political ideology. Why did he do this? This is kind of an open question. Just to give you an idea of the kind of mentality that Howard Campbell has, the kind of apolitical mentality that he has. Here's a short poem that he writes in the course of the novel. Hold on a sec. Howard Campbell, being an author, a poet, a playwright, he writes this at one point. He says, "I saw a huge steamroller. It blotted out the sun. The people all lay down. They did not try to run. My love and I, we looked amazed upon the gory mystery. Lie down, the people cried. The great machine is history. My love and I, we ran away. The engine did not find us. We ran up to a mountaintop, left history far behind us. Perhaps we should have stayed and died, but somehow we don't think so. We went to see where history had been, and my, the dead did stink so." So this is the mentality of Howard Campbell. He sees the cosmic picture, the big picture. He looks at humanity as a whole, and obviously he doesn't like what he sees at all. So this is the story of a character who is a seasoned character, a jaded character, a character who sees the botched nature of humanity. And he sees how nobody in this novel is all good or all bad. He has one particular friend. I don't know if this is considered a spoiler. I really don't know how to do a book review if there are no spoilers. I can't interpret the novel if I withhold how the novel ends. But he's living in Greenwich Village, and in the same building, he befriends a Russian who is an artist. At the same time that the Russian and the Russian befriends him, and they become the best of friends. At the same time, the Russian, he discovers, is also a communist spy. It doesn't mean that the man he befriends is not truly his friend. He is. And yet, at the same time, he's a Soviet agent. He's not all good, and he's not all bad. There's an ambivalence about it. There's a world-weary, knowing ambivalence about the nature of people. There's another character in this book. I think his name is the Reverend Jones. And the Reverend Jones is a Nazi living in America. He's one of these sick fucks who wants to have his own little Nazi party. And he befriends Howard Campbell. He thinks that Howard Campbell was a Nazi. He doesn't know that he was a spy for the U.S. He thinks that he was a real Nazi and a Nazi hero, and he gravitates towards Howard Campbell, and he befriends him. Howard Campbell doesn't want his friendship in the beginning. Howard Campbell knows he's kind of a reprehensible nut, but he just intrudes himself into Howard Campbell's life, and they get along in some strange way. But as the novel goes on, you'll find out that even this detestable Nazi sympathizer, this Reverend Jones, even he is not without some good qualities. Everyone in this novel has good qualities as well as reprehensible ones. The only people in the novel that are purely evil, I think, and that are meant to be seen as purely evil, are Adolf Eichmann, who happens to share a cell next to Campbell in Israel while he's awaiting trial for war crimes. Obviously he is. And a person like Goebbels is obviously completely evil. But everybody else in this book has a kind of ambivalent nature. And this struck me very much. Kurt Vonnegut was in the war, I understand, and I think he witnessed the bombing of Dresden, the firebombing of Dresden. So Kurt Vonnegut has seen humanity at its worst, and he survived it. But you can tell by the nature in which this book is written, not only does he have a very jaded, bleak view of humanity, he has a gallows sense of humor about humanity, which is made manifest by his character, Howard Campbell. And I have to say, this is, I identify, as much as I'm able to, since I wasn't in any war, I identify with this notion of botched humanity and this kind of gallows humor. It's a very, very powerful, it's not a very long novel, it's a short novel. It's divided into very short chapters of maybe, 2 to 3 or maybe 4 pages each. The writing is swift, concise, brilliant, not overly poetic or metaphorical or flowery, or it doesn't pontificate. It doesn't give us this great moral message. It doesn't shove it in our face. It leaves it for us to decide. And it is very, very powerful. I used to think that, Bukowski, Charles Bukowski, was like a really, really great writer. He wrote a couple of books that I really admire. But I have to say, in terms of jadedness, in terms of world weariness, in terms of bone-dry wit and irony and gallows humor, this novel, Mother Night, blows Bukowski away to me. This novel makes Holden Caulfield a midget. It's a very powerful novel, and it was an extremely enjoyable novel to read. Very fast-paced. I read it in like 2.5 days. I could have read it quicker. I understand that a movie was made of this novel, Mother Night, starring Nick Nolte. I saw it once, don't remember anything about it. I'm not interested in seeing it again because I know that Hollywood would just fuck it up. They would botch it completely. There's no need to see a movie debase this novel. It's a terrific novel. I think that most people, well, I can't say what most people will do. I enjoyed it immensely.